The latest version of Twinmotion, the 2025.2 preview, was released just today. And the most important feature that you will find in this new version is Nanite. As you can see here in the release notes, the first element in the list of the what's new is Nanite. And you're probably wondering, what's that strange word? What's Nanite? If you have never used Unreal Engine 5, that can be very strange to you, but if you have used it, you must know that this is something that has been in Unreal Engine for a few years already, and that was a game changer in terms of scene optimization. In order to see what exactly Nanite does, I'm going to open here the desert template that you can find within Twinmotion, because it's a scene that will be very useful to apply Nanite to it. Okay, so as you can see now, it's a scene that contains meshes that needs up to 2.9 gigabytes, almost 3 gigabytes. And if we check in the statistics tab, the meshes section, you'll notice that we have here one object with almost 8 million triangles that is used 14 times, and many other objects that have dozens of triangles, of polygons that are used dozens, even hundreds of times. So this is a very intensive scene in terms of polygon count of triangles. This is a scene where Nanite will work best. And why is it? Because Nanite is a feature that will allow us to automatically optimize those objects that has high quality, high polygon counts. I'm going to right click here the scene graph to select absolutely all elements to show you the easiest way to enable Nanite. If we select all elements and we right click here, we can use the convert all to Nanite. We can do this either on a container like this folder we have here, convert all to Nanite, or if we do it in the scene graph element, it will select absolutely all the elements on the list. We click on the convert all to Nanite, which is a new button in this version, and it will start the process. Depending on your scene, if you have millions of objects, of triangles, of polygons, well, it can take a few minutes because it's analyzing all of those objects and generating what we'll see in a few minutes. So while it loads, let's go back to the Twinmotion documentation and let's learn what exactly is Nanite. So they have here a great explanation that I would like to read with you. So 3D models are composed of several triangle polygons known as triangles. Nanite reduces the memory usage and disk space of 3D models by dynamically optimizing their triangle count in real time, based on the amount of screen space. This is the most important thing, screen space. So when an object is far away from the viewport camera and takes up less space on the screen, Nanite dynamically decreases the triangle count of the object, simplifying it so only visible details are loaded and rendered. So it's a scene optimization in real time. And when an object is near the viewport camera, well, Nanite will increase the triangle count. So this is a feature that is very important to use for those scenes that have objects with a very high number of polygons. We can see here in this page of the Unreal Engine documentation more about Nanite, a great explanation with all of its features, but don't worry, you don't need to read it since most of these options are not even available within Twinmotion. But this part is very essential. So the benefits of Nanite, what are those? Multiple orders of magnitude increase in geometry complexity. Frame budgets are no longer constrained by polygons. Use high poly detailing rather than baking detail into normal map textures. Level of detail is automatically handled and no longer require manual setup for individual mesh LODs. So what the Epic Games team is inviting us with this Nanite is to use objects, models with very high poly counts that we don't lose any detail, and we don't lose any time optimizing those objects with some manual procedures of doing different level of details variations, that you create for a mesh, different variation of that objects to create different level of details. No, that you have a loss of quality which is rare or non-existent with a completely automatical process that's done with just a click. So if we go back here to our scene, we will notice instantly the change. If you notice, the FPS count has doubled. Before it was 14, 15, 16, 17. I'll show you here. And now it's 35, 34, and if we move a bit, we'll notice how it's much smoother to movement because we have more FPS. And this is magical because the only thing that we did was to right click here, convert all to Nanite, and done. And if we remind, there were a few other updates that were made to Twinmotion. If we go to preference, here in quality, we also have the NVIDIA DLSS super resolution. If you don't know what this is, we have a video that explains much more about it. But for now, I'm going to enable frame generation to increase our FPS count much more. And if you notice, we are now here working on 63 FPS. With just a few clicks, we almost tripled the initial amount of FPS that we had in our scene. So how do we know if Nanite was already enabled? We can use other of the new buttons that we have in this Twinmotion version, which is this one. If you notice, the viewport now has two other buttons, this one to toggle full screen, but this one that will allow us to change between the different view modes that were now added to Twinmotion. The special one here is Nanite triangles. What it will do is show us how this Nanite technology is working. If you notice, these are the triangles that has been mentioned a lot in this video, and each of the objects have a different triangle count, but also it changes in real time. If we move back, you notice how the geometry triangles shown with Nanite start to change depending on our position and the camera view. Remind, if an object occupies much more screen space, like this car is doing, look how the triangles make smaller and smaller to show us a much more detailed geometry. This is amazing because this is in real time. You can see it working. If you notice, the road does not change as much as this car because obviously the car has a higher poly count, and we can see it here on screen. The much we get closer, the much more it increases. It does not happen with the road because the poly count of the road is much less. And this is applied to absolutely all objects in the scene, and that's why you can see how the FPS count increased a lot, because it's doing this automatically for many of the complex geometries that we have in this scene. So let's go back for a moment here, just to end this, because there are some things that we need to keep in mind, at least for now. So the Epic Games team and Twinmotion recommend using Nanite on highly detailed objects that have very dense meshes. An ideal candidate for Nanite must accomplish this: contain a large number of triangles, has a large number of instances in the scenes, can be an object that's repeated 1,000 of times inside the same scene, or is a major occluder of other Nanite geometries. It means that it can create or cast, it can cast shadows using the accurate shadow mapping option. It affects other objects that are using Nanite in our scene. But also, you need to keep in mind the Nanite support, at least at the moment. Nanite is supported for all static geometry that you can import into Twinmotion via the Geometry tab or using Datasmith, and any static model that you download from the Sketchfab library or from the Quicksand Megascans library in the 3D Assets and 3D Plans category. But some objects actually do not support Nanite, and you need to keep this in mind. Twinmotion and Quixel Megascans assets that you find within the regular library, which is, let's see it here, the regular library must be these objects, I guess. And let's go back here. those are not supported, and imported animated files from the Sketchfab library and any animated files. So animated elements are not supported, and the Quixel Megascan library assets that are from the surfaces and decal category, because yes, you know, this does not have a real geometry in it. So this is exactly what Nanite is and why it's so important, especially if you're working with exterior scene with millions of polygons or very detailed interior scenes. If you want to know much more about all the other features that this new version has, check the next video.